Casts.
Good evening and welcome to BBC 4, and we start with BBC World News today.
This is BBC World News Today. I'm Duncan Golestani at Top Stories. Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May wins the support of two Brexit-leaning cabinet heavyweights for her draft deal and takes her argument to the British people.
I want to be able to say to all parliamentarians, every MP, I truly believe this is the best deal for Britain.
The White House is ordered to readmit the journalist who was banned after this exchange with Donald Trump. The press and the president give their verdicts.
This is a great day for the First Amendment in journalism.
People have to behave, and they have to do, we're writing up rules and regulations.
The president also confirms he has sent written answers to the investigation into Russian meddling in US elections. We'll have the latest on both stories live from Washington. Also ahead. The funeral without a body. A service is held in Turkey for the murdered Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And we'll explain why the way a kilogram is measured is changing from a set of scales to an electric current. Hello and welcome to BBC World News Today. The UK Prime Minister Theresa May has moved to shore up her government following widespread opposition to the Brexit withdrawal deal she struck with the EU. This evening, she's appointed a new Brexit secretary, Stephen Barclay, after the previous one resigned. Mrs May has also won the support of some of her key ministers, but she has had to defend herself against more calls from critics to stand down. Several Conservative MPs say they've written letters of no confidence in the Prime Minister, but it's still not clear if there are enough to trigger a leadership vote. The BBC's political editor Laura Koonsberg reports.
Imagine submitting yourself first thing in the morning to this.
And here in the studio with me, the Prime Minister.
Literally taking a call from the public, asking you to quit.
Why do you think you should stay on as PM when you have failed, despite your no doubt honourable intentions to run this referendum results? And if you cannot do that, I respectfully ask you to do the right thing in the national interest and stand down to allow someone from the Brexit camp to take the lead.
I believe that we've got a good deal from the European... We've still got some things to sort out with them, but I believe we've got a good deal from the European Union, and that's what I'll put to Parliament.
She was more keen to pitch her Brexit compromise. This message needs to be convincing to survive.
My job is to persuade, first and foremost, my Conservative benches, those who are working with us, the DUP are working with us, obviously in confidence and supply, but I want to be able to say to all parliamentarians, every MP, I truly believe this is the best deal for Britain.
Will you be resigning today, Mr Gove?
Morning.
He doesn't think it's much of a good deal. But after wobbling and wavering, look, the Minister's red box still in his hand.
Do you have confidence in the Prime Minister, Mr Gove?
I absolutely do. I'm also looking forward to continuing to work with all my government colleagues and all my colleagues in Parliament in order to make sure that we get the best future for Britain. I think it's absolutely vital that we focus on getting the right deal in the future and making sure that in the areas that matter so much to the British people, we can get a good outcome. Thank you very much.
We know this Cabinet Minister, Penny Mordaunt, doesn't like the agreement that much either. But neither is she going anywhere fast.
I've not got anything to say, I'm afraid, to you this morning.
And look who's back. Amber Rudd, the former Home Secretary. Yet to remember, she gets a ministerial car, along with her new job at pensions. And you'll soon hear more of this man. Meet Steve Barclay, a big promotion for him to the new Brexit secretary. And the Prime Minister's most loyal lieutenants are fighting to close the argument down.
The Prime Minister can survive and thrive. I mean, this is a woman who comes into the office every day not to look for media opportunities, but for doing her public duty. It's old-fashioned, decent public service is what's motivating her.
And this long-time cabinet Brexiteer, not just urging colleagues to back the PM, but no longer saying no deal is better than a bad deal. a complete change.
We are not elected to do what we want. We're elected to do what's in the national interest. And ultimately, I hope that across Parliament, we'll recognise that a deal is better than no deal. Businesses do require certainty.
This melee isn't for a celebrity, but for a leading Eurosceptic.
There's absolutely no need to have a big flap.
No need for a big flap, he says. He and his colleagues are only trying to depose the Prime Minister. He and many Brexiteers believe the Prime Minister is signed up to a relationship that's just far too cosy with the EU. So letters are being written to try to force a contest, but they need 48.
We've done our honest best to persuade her not to stick to it. She's made plain that she will, and therefore the party, I'm afraid, now faces a stark choice.
And for you, that choice is she has to go?
If it means defending the destiny of our country, which I believe is literally what is now at stake, then reluctantly, I'm afraid to say, yes, she does.
It's impossible to tell right now if the Tory tussles will end in the Prime Minister leaving office. No one in Westminster knows. Hard for all of us to fathom.
I think it's a complete shambles. Don't know from one day to the next what's happening. Doesn't feel as if there's anybody in power.
What she's been saying for months and just stringing us along until, boom, right at the end, it's too late to say anything. Take this or leave it.
I hope they go home for the weekend and they chill off and come back and support her.
Theresa May's team will do everything they can to help her cling on. But neither the Chief Whip nor anyone knows if in days they'll be fighting a vote to oust her or only having the huge job of pushing her Brexit deal through Parliament.
I've never accepted the argument that the Prime Minister can come back with whatever she's cobbled together and say, well, it may not be very good, but the alternative is even worse. In the 21st century, looking at the future of our country, we've got to be able to do better than that.
Tonight, Downing Street appears at least to have a new and calmer cabinet. But we do not know yet, and they don't either, if Theresa May can stay on, because many people in her own party do not wish her well.
Our political editor Laura Koonsberg reporting there, and a little later in the programme we'll be live in Westminster getting the latest reaction and developments. Now, the White House says it will reinstate the press pass of CNN reporter Jim Acosta after a judge ruled in the journalist's favour. Mr. Acosta had a heated exchange with President Trump at a recent press conference. The White House later suspended his pass, saying he placed his hand on a female intern. But after 2 hours of hearings earlier this week, a federal court has granted Mr. Acosta a preliminary injunction. Let's just have a look back at the argument which triggered that court action.
May I ask one other question? Are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President,
that's enough.
Ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am.
Excuse me. That's enough.
Mr. President, I have one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have...
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian
indictments
investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down on this?
So that was the exchange at the centre of all this. Now, CNN lawyer Ted Boutros described the temporary injunction as a victory for American press, while the reporter at the centre of the saga, Mr. Acosta, made a brief statement.
We're extremely pleased with the ruling today. This is a great day for the First Amendment in journalism. We're very excited to have Mr. Acosta be able to go back and get his hard pass and report the news about the White House. I'll turn it over to Jim.
Okay. Everybody, thanks for coming. I just want to say something very briefly, and that is I want to thank all of my colleagues in the press who supported us this week, and I want to thank the judge for the decision he made today, and let's go back to work.
The White House has released a statement saying it will temporarily reinstate Jim Acosta's press pass in response to that court ruling, but it also said it will develop further rules for press conferences because, quote, there must be decorum in the White House. Donald Trump has responded to the ruling, telling reporters a journalist should not be allowed to ask 4 questions in a row.
People have to behave, and they have to do, we're writing up rules and regulations to make our position. I think you were treated very unfairly, both of you. I think you were treated very unfairly because you have somebody interrupting you. And if they don't listen to the rules and regulations, we'll end up back in court and we'll win. But more importantly, we'll just leave, and then you won't be very happy.
Well, let's get more on this now from Washington and our correspondent there, Anthony Zerka. Anthony, this isn't really about Mr. Acosta asking 4 questions, is it? There's been a lot of bad blood between this particular network and the White House for a long time.
No, there has. And Donald Trump has singled out CNN as what he calls a fake news network and said that they are part of being enemies of the people. This is part of what Donald Trump does regularly when there's some sort of controversy in the air is try to turn it into a dispute between him and the media. I think that rallies the base behind him. It gets people supporting him rather than focusing on whatever the controversy of the day is. But if you look at what this judge's ruling was, it was very narrow and it's temporary. And it basically said that the White House couldn't give any sort of justification for removing the press pass, that it didn't have any kind of procedure set, had shifting explanations for why they did this. And the larger concern, which the judge didn't get in, is does the White House have the power to revoke press credentials from reporters that it doesn't like, or who ask questions it doesn't like, or from news outlets it doesn't like? And that would be what setting some sort of procedures and appeals process, that would be what that would avoid to keep this from having a chilling effect on the media's attempts to cover the White House.
Anthony, this really galvanised the media, didn't it? I was particularly struck by the fact that the Fox network came out in support of CNN.
Right, you saw mainstream media generally rally behind CNN in this lawsuit. Media outlets, no matter their ideology, are very careful to protect their privileges and their ability to cover people in power. That's the lifeblood of what they do. And you saw it even back during the Obama administration, when the Obama administration froze out some Fox reporters from getting interviews with government officials, and places like CNN, outlets like CNN, rallied behind Fox. Or when the Obama administration targeted a Fox reporter for an investigation into government leaking. There was generally universal support from the mainstream media for Fox. So when the gloves are down, they tend to stick together when it comes to press privileges. And in this case, that's what you saw again.
OK, Anthony, just stay with us for just a moment, because I want to get your opinion on something else. The other big issue that Donald Trump was asked about in that press conference today is the Mueller inquiry into allegations of Russian meddling in the 2016 election. The president says he has now completed written answers to Robert Mueller's questions. Let's just have a listen to what the president had to say.
There should have never been any Mueller investigation because there was never anything done wrong. There was no collusion. There never has been. You would have known about it a long time ago if there was. There was nothing. They should have never had it. They've wasted millions and millions of dollars. There should have never been a so-called investigation, which in theory it's not an investigation of me. But it's, as far as I'm concerned, I like to take everything personally because you do better that way. The witch hunt, as I call it, should never have taken place. It continues to go on. I imagine it's ending now. From what I hear, it's ending. And I'm sure it'll be just fine. And you know why it's going to be just fine? Because there was no collusion.
Anthony, trying to sound optimistic there, the president. Hopefully ending soon and it's all going to be just fine, apparently.
All right, and shrugging off the seriousness of these questions, that runs against media reports that have been circulating for the past few weeks that Donald Trump and his lawyers have been having very intense meetings on how exactly to respond to Robert Mueller's questions that have been presented to him, and that it wasn't just Donald Trump doing it very easily by himself, but that there's a lot of consideration to this because of the possible legal jeopardy that answering these incorrectly or not fully might expose. So while he's trying to say it's not a big deal, as he was asked by reporters in that meeting, he was tweeting very aggressively just yesterday about the Mueller investigation, and it seems that it's something that's on his mind and is getting him very anxious.
Anthony, another busy day in Washington. Thank you very much. Anthony Zerka there. Let's go back now to our top story, the battle by the British Prime Minister to win support for her Brexit deal. We can go live to Westminster and speak to our correspondent, Ian Watson. Ian, as Britain heads into the weekend, it's Friday evening in the UK, is the government looking more stable now?
Stable, I think, is too strong a word for it, actually, but certainly things are calming down a bit from a very febrile atmosphere at Westminster during the course of the week. Why are they calming down? Well, first of all, there's been no formal leadership challenge to Theresa May. It requires 48 of her own politicians to call for a vote of no confidence. That hasn't quite happened. It could happen next week, but she does seem to have some breathing space over the weekend. Secondly, she is at least carrying on with a demeanour of business as usual. She's made some important appointments to her cabinet. She's brought back the former Home Secretary, the Interior Minister, Amber Rudd, a long-standing ally of hers, somebody who had voted to remain in the EU referendum, and she is there to help support her deal. She takes over at the Work and Pensions Department. And in addition to that, she's got a Leave campaigner to take on the vacant post of Brexit Secretary, a guy called Stephen Barclay, not desperately well known, so perhaps signalling that she doesn't have a lot of people at cabinet level, at the front rank of politics, are willing to go out into the media and argue for her deal with the EU. But nonetheless, it's somebody who supported Brexit, and that was important. So to some extent, she's trying to stabilise her government, but also she's trying to go on the front foot herself and go in the media and argue for the deal that she's reached. As I say, I think she's got some breathing space over the weekend because there isn't yet a challenge. But I don't know, when MPs go back to their constituencies, when they talk to their local voters, when they talk to their party members, it is possible people will say, calm down, give the Prime Minister a chance. But it's equally possible they'll say, we don't like the look of this deal, she's giving too much to the EU, and they could come back next week emboldened. So I think at the moment there's a sense of relief around Downing Street, but not necessarily one of stability.
Is the EU being helpful in this? Because surely it's in their interests that she get this deal through.
They'd be helpful up to a point. I mean, what they're not doing is fanning the flames here of rebellion, if you like, in their own ranks. They're keeping pretty much tight-lipped. What they're saying, they tend to be saying in private. Nonetheless, I think there are limits to their help. While there would be negotiations over the next 10 days, for example, on what a future partnership between Britain and the EU would look like on trade and so on, they're making it very clear privately they're not going to try to unpick this 580-page withdrawal agreement, which has proved so controversial with some in their own party, and certainly some at cabinet level, including Michael Gove, the Environment Secretary, who was touted as a possible Brexit Secretary. I think he and some others would like to see that renegotiated as well, especially on this issue of no hard border in Ireland and how you'd get out of any arrangement, any backstop. But they're making it pretty clear that can't happen. In Downing Street, the people around Theresa May are saying that she's not really asking for that. So I think there are limits to their help. But what they're not doing is sort of weighing in, wagging their fingers, or in any way commenting on the drama that's currently taking place inside the ruling Conservative Party.
Enough people doing that. Thank you very much, Ian Watson in Westminster. A funeral service has been held in Istanbul for the murdered Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, who was killed in the Saudi consulate there in early October. Similar services were held in the Muslim holy cities of Mecca and Medina. Mr. Khashoggi was killed by a team sent from Saudi Arabia in circumstances that remain unclear. Mark Lowen was at the funeral service in Istanbul and sent us this report.
Over 6 weeks since Jamal Khashoggi was killed inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, his funeral without his body. Turkish officials believe that after he was murdered inside the consulate and his body dismembered, that it was then dissolved in acid. They say that this was a premeditated murder carried out by a hit squad here in Istanbul under the orders of the highest levels of the Saudi government. The Saudi prosecutor, though, has released his report saying that this was a botched rendition of Jamal Khashoggi, that a team was sent here from Saudi Arabia to render him, to take him back to Riyadh, and that when that went wrong, when there was a dispute that occurred inside the consulate, that a decision was taken to kill him. Turkey, though, says that's insufficient, that explanation simply doesn't wash. They believe that the officials came here, a hit squad was sent here with tools, with a forensics expert, expressly with the order to kill this Saudi dissident. And so, almost 2 months since he was killed, they've carried out this funeral prayer in absentia. And here, his friends and his colleagues say they are not willing to allow this to be swept under the carpet. They're going to keep up the pressure. They say that this is a huge cover-up operation by the highest levels of the Saudi state.
Mark Lowen in Istanbul. The European Commission will discipline Italy over its 2019 budget next week after Rome defied EU objections to its plan to borrow and spend more. Italy resubmitted its draft budget to the Commission on Tuesday, not having changed the parts that Brussels rejected in October. Italy's debt is the second highest in the EU after Greece. The number of people missing after wildfires destroyed the Californian town of Paradise has now doubled to more than 630. So far, 63 bodies have been discovered there, but the death toll is expected to rise considerably. After the worst wildfires in California's history, President Trump will travel to the state tomorrow to see the damage for himself and meet some of those affected. Dan Johnson reports now from Paradise.
These smouldering ruins still refuse to reveal just how much went when Paradise burned. The official number of lives lost has kept slowly climbing, but the sheriff's latest update stunned everyone.
The number of people who are still looking for, who are unaccounted for, has increased to 631, and this number increased by 501 people.
That's because they've checked the number of emergency calls made as the fire burned and compared different lists. Boards like this have appeared at shelters around town with lists of people who are missing and the numbers of loved ones to contact. But this search is increasingly being conducted on social media. So Facebook pages are filled with stories of family members missing, friends and relatives not heard from for more than a week. Like Jonathan's brother, Maurice, missing along with his wife and daughter.
This isn't like Maurice to just disappear off the face of the earth and not let anybody know. But we're still trying, and we'll do whatever it takes until he's found, dead or alive.
Another body's been found. Another family will be getting a call. They will have their answer, but so many more are still waiting. Dan Johnson, BBC News, Paradise.
OK, let's take a look at a few more stories now. A man who disfigured a former Miss Italy finalist by throwing acid in her face has been jailed for 15 years by an appeal court in Bologna. Jessica Notaro's ex-boyfriend, Edson Tavares, was originally given a jail term last year, but the court decided to combine the case with a conviction for stalking her. Japan Airlines is taking new measures to ensure its pilots do not consume so much alcohol they are over the legal limits for being in charge of an aircraft. It comes after one of their pilots was arrested at London's Heathrow Airport for being drunk. And sources close to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have denied reports that he's agreed to call a snap election amid a crisis in his government. One of Mr. Netanyahu's aides says he is working to keep the coalition government in place after his defence minister resigned 2 days ago. Now, the kilogram is one of the most widely used units of measurement in the world, seen in kitchens, bathrooms and supermarkets everywhere. But now scientists have met in France and voted in favour of changing the way it's measured. Since the 19th century, it's been defined by the weight of a platinum-based cylinder locked in a safe in Paris. But that has shrunk ever so slightly. Our science correspondent Palab Ghosh reports.
Inside this building, southwest of Paris, is a small platinum and iridium cylinder weighing exactly 1 kilogram. In fact, it's the kilogram. Since 1889, it's been the object by which all other kilograms in the world are measured. People call it le grand que. Copies of it are kept all over the world, including at the National Physical Laboratory in Teddington. This one has a more prosaic name, kilogram 18. It's hard to imagine that our entire system of international weights is based on a single piece of metal like this that was made 129 years ago. In all that time, it's been contaminated by the atmosphere and cleaned several times. So in all likelihood, its weight will have changed ever so slightly since it was first made.
We know from comparing the kilogram with all the copies of the kilogram that are all around the world at all the national measurement institutes that there are discrepancies between the national standards and the kilogram itself. And this is not unacceptable from a scientific point of view. So even though it's fit for purpose at the moment, in 100 years' time, the kilogram will definitely have changed.
At a meeting in Versailles, those in charge of the world's weights and measures voted to scrap le grand que.
The vote was unanimous, yes.
I'm a little bit sad that the kilogram's being redefined, but it's important and it's going to work a lot better after. But changing into the new system, it's a really, really exciting time.
The new system is based on the force generated by an electric current. It'll be more accurate and never need to be changed again. But there'll be those that'll miss the little piece of metal that's defined our system of weights for so long. Palab Ghosh, BBC News.
Now, we've touched on the political turmoil over Brexit in the UK, but Westminster is not the only parliament where emotions are running high. Take a look at these pictures from inside the Sri Lankan Assembly. This is how the violence broke out. The cameras catching people lashing out at each other, even throwing chairs and what we are told is chili powder. It started after the Speaker declared there was no government, a new development in the row which broke out when the President fired the Prime Minister and replaced him with the former President, Minda Rajapaksa. One legislator was hospitalised and several were injured. And finally, one of the greatest works of modern art has been sold at auction in New York for just over $90 million. Portrait of an artist, Paul with two figures, was painted in 1972. You're watching BBC World News Today.
Hello there. For many of us, we're looking at quite a murky night. A lot of low clouds, some mist and fog patches with poor visibility out on the roads, and there'll be some patches of drizzle. But there will be some significant changes taking place through the weekend as pressure builds across the United Kingdom and we start to get some drier air moving in from the continent. That combination will attack the sheet of cloud and we'll see increasingly sunny skies spreading across England and Wales. Some sunshine for Scotland, although it may well stay quite cloudy in the east. Northern Ireland, one place that might keep the cloud all day. Temperatures coming down a little bit, close to average for the time of year. Highs for many between 10 and 12 degrees. Now looking at the forecast into Saturday evening time, temperatures will drop away quite quickly and it will turn out to be quite a chilly night. For the second half of the weekend and Sunday, high pressure is firmly in charge of our weather. It's sat across Scandinavia and we're starting to draw in some colder air coming down from the Arctic and moving into northern Europe. That will be significant for the weather that we've got coming our way for next week. For the time being, though, Sunday looks like being a similar kind of day. If anything, more sunshine to go around, those sunnier skies reaching Northern Ireland and Scotland. So for most of us, a fine-looking day. The winds will feel quite chilly if you're out and about, though, on Sunday. Quite brisk easterly winds as we head through the afternoon. And temperatures similar, 10 to 12 degrees for most of us. However, it gets much colder next week. For some, towards the end of the week, we're looking at temperatures of around 5 or 6 degrees. That's your weather.
Celebrate a brand new series.
What year is it? Where's all the music?
With Vic and Bob.
You can do it if you really want. Hey, Bob, can you do this? Here, lads, are you able to get these letters off? You're doing a show, are you? We're doing a show here, mate.
Vic and Bob do what they really want.
I know what I want, yeah.
In their big night out. Starts Wednesday, 28th of November on BBC 4.
What you need to run a pirate radio station is passion for music, decks, a microphone, transmitter, and the best MC in the galaxy.
And how many of those do you have at the moment?
We've only got the best MC in the galaxy. We haven't really got any equipment at the moment, but we're working on that.
What are the alternatives to radio?
There are no alternatives to radio. What's the alternative to radio?
There ain't one, do you know what I mean? What, putting on a suit and tie and like, or working for 8 hours a day, every day. I don't want that for me or my family.
People didn't realise that Jesus was so talented until so many years later, and it's the same thing with Grindr. We might have to wait another 2,000 years for the world to really understand him.
I've got goals. If you've got goals, you don't need a job. If you know where your dreams are, you don't need to live in reality.
BAFTA award-winning comedy, People Just Do Nothing, continues Monday at 10 on BBC 2 and BBC iPlayer.
Otis Redding, Whitney Houston and George Michael smashing it out of the park with all-time show-stopping performances here on BBC 4. Beverly Knight and James Morrison bring on the vocal giants and beyond in half an hour. Kicking off Mighty Friday music with Top of the Pops 1986.
the show tonight. In the studio, we've got Loose Ends and we've got Daryl Candy. On video, we've got Huey Lewis, we've got Genesis, and we've also got Run DMC. And we brought the girls in, soon to be appearing at a venue near you because they're on tour. Here are Amazulu Montego Bay.